Right, well, good afternoon, councillors. It's nice to see a lot of interest again from our community as people are rolling in. But as we open up today's meeting at 1 o'clock, we do acknowledge and pay respect to the original and ongoing owners of this unceded land, respecting the Palawa people. So please take a seat and we'll kick into the meeting. I don't believe, no apologies, all councillors present. No mayoral acknowledgements today as a part of the agenda at item 2. We've got declarations of interest with agenda item 3. So a councillor must declare any interest that the councillor has in a matter before any discussion on that matter commences. Do I have any declared interests today? There being none, we'll move forward through to the confirmation of the minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the City of Launceston held on the 16th of November be confirmed as true and accurate record. Do I have someone to move? Councillor Harris. Second to Councillor Britton. All of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Okay, agenda item number 5, council workshops 5.1. The council workshop report from the 16th to the 23rd of November. The recommendation is that council notes the council workshops conducted and attended since the last council meeting for the purposes described as the YMCA presentation, the draft annual report 24-25, expressions of interest process 56 Frederick Street, road occupation fee, also the Northern Gateway project, and the Northern Tasmanian Cricket Association site visit. Just noting that a reflection in the minutes that I wasn't at the 2 through, and it says that I was. Somebody to move the workshops, Councillor Harris. A seconder, Councillor Britton. Councillor Harris, would you like to speak to the workshops conducted?
Just a correction to what's in the minutes as published, that the Carvella site visit did not occur.
Sure.
If that would be noted. And other than that, no, nothing more to say.
Thank you. Nothing as the seconder. Would anybody else like to speak to the workshops conducted? No? Anything to close, Councillor Harris? All of those? It was moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Britton. And just the amendments to that I wasn't at the ones in section 2, and the Carvilla site visit didn't happen at this time. Okay, so all of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Looking at agenda item number 6, we don't have any councillors' leave of absent applications as a part of this agenda, and I don't see any community reports with number 7. Okay, well, I haven't got that one noted, so what can someone please tell me what's...
Just pick over the page.
I don't have that page. I don't have a 7.1. Here
you go.
Thank you. Okay, we have Kim and Edwina as a part of Interweave. I did see you girls come in. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for inviting us and offering some time. We're from the Interweave Arts, and Interweave Arts is based at in the studio, which is like a TARDIS. So we do projects that run a studio program, and all-inclusive. And also we do public art. So I've got Edwina here. She's a part of our studio program, and she coordinates our Monday program. So she's going to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll expand. We're just here to tell you how vibrant we are and what a great job we do for the city. We've been around for 24 years. Our mayor is privy to that. And past mayor have been a part of our remade program and the annual Gumboot Gala, which we started this.
I just want to give you my little personal story. I came to Launceston in 2017. I knew nobody. And because I got involved in Interweave, Launceston opened up to me. And I was able to find an outlet for all of my skill set. I'm an extremely experienced person in the arts, in performing and visual arts, and I've been invited to festivals all over the world in every area that I have expertise in. So coming down here and just going, I know no one, I have no network, nobody knows I can do what I do. Interweave happened, and I can't tell you how fulfilling it has made my life. I'm actually happier now living in Launceston, having this reach into the community where I can dovetail all of my experience in waste management, in food waste management, in arts, in crafts, in writing, in... It's just huge what this studio has enabled me to do in this community, and to have the connection with people of all different age groups. I'm just blown away by what Interweave does. Okay, that's enough from me.
Thanks, Edwina. And Edwina is actually showcasing a work we do, Remade, which is a wearable, sustainable project that we just had, and the basket and her amazing shirt, what do you call it? Yeah. Were a part of that program. So one of our aims, and we were really grateful for the council and the museum to support us over the years, because we love being at Inveresk and we love the fact that it's been reclaimed with the garden and everything. And so, as Edwina noted, we are very skilled at running events and public events that are total community based. So we have been building that, and that's why the Gumbert Gala came on board, and that was ABCDE sort of initiative that we work with Sarah and the community. And Remade is something that we've initiated in 2010, so it's an annual thing. But we're actually deciding that we will use the space, since the Albert Hall is being not accessible for us at the moment, and do it in the public outside. So Edwina might like to talk a bit about that.
And what we particularly like about doing that is that we've managed to reduce the costs down to just the most incredibly small outlay. So by using our own space, which of course council provides, we're able to create events that are actually accessible financially for all Tasmanians. And that's not something that gets a lot. You know, I'm sorry about my grammar. I'm excited and I'm trying to communicate, but that doesn't happen enough down here. And we've got a two-tier economy, haven't we? And mostly what happens, because it's a small population, we need to get that money from the tourists, etc. And that's great. But Interweave provides something for actual Tasmanians, for our local community, all of them.
And we do it amazingly, I think. We also try and showcase a re. So we do a lot of, some of you might have noticed that we covered the tanks, the water tanks, with crocheting, and those blankets have been used and donated over many years, and they're in storage. And then we added the hut, the little hut, and ultimately we do want to cover the studio. So we're doing a Christo at Inveresk, ultimately, once we get enough blankets. The flags? And we also given a lot with the flags. So the council have a lot of decommissioned flags that go through the city. So we take a number of things that we would like to then use in a creative sense. So I'm assuming that's our time. Thank you for your time. Please pop in. We do have a Friday lunch that we're welcome for everybody to talk and see the TARDIS from within, and maybe contribute some skills or whatever. Just say hello. That would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, I see. Great. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in our spaces there as well. It's fantastic. And the reach, as you were mentioning as well, into the community. Moving through to agenda item number 8. 8.1 is public questions on notice. You'll see the question around committee review and waste management centre, and the answer in the published agenda, and also one from Carol Fuller around the community grant bid as well in those. Bringing us to 8.2, which is public questions without notice. Now, we've got a couple, and I thank those who are going to ask, who have submitted them a little ahead of time, so we've been able to have a bit more of a look. So I can see Kirsten moving to the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kirsten Ritchie from Strike It Out Inc. We're located at 37 Birch Street in Newstead. I'm here this afternoon because we put forward an expression of interest for 56 Frederick Street in Launceston, and just hopefully that we submitted all our expressions to each councillor, and we just hope that you've read it, and we look forward to the outcome of that one. Also, as you're probably aware, you're seeing more and more tents and people becoming homeless here in Launceston, again due to the lack of affordability of accommodation here in our city. So we're getting more and more people presenting sleeping rough and emergency needs. So it's doubled in the last 6 months. And we need some urgency around providing those amenities for those people in our city. We've got Brickfields Park, where I've requested that a portable toilet be set up for those people. Not only that, you've got people walking through that park to work, you've got a children's playground there. So, you know, people that are sleeping in that area and can't make it to the toilet, where do you think they're going? So I think it's a health issue and we need to address that urgently. So perhaps the council could look at providing a portable toilet down there today. That would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Yep, we'll definitely follow that up. Yep, thank you. Mr. Ganninan?
Hi, Ian Ganninan. Today's questions aren't about flood for a change, but I haven't given up on flood, and I had the Premier's Department in our office today to talk about the situation of potential flooding in Launceston. So you'll hear more. But more serious one, and I think Kirsten raised it as well, and that is the homeless in Launceston. I drive into town past the bottom of the museum, and there's a tent on the side of the road there. So it's someone home. And I'm concerned that, is there any risk management done on that? I see a heap of empty bottles and cans there, look like alcoholic ones. And not that I'm a poor driver, I'm going to drive anywhere near the verge, but it could well happen. The tent's right on the verge. And anyone that's in there, if they have been drinking or anything else, could quite easily wander out in the night onto the road. So to me, it doesn't look appropriate. And I wonder what sort of risk management tool do you use in assessing those locations for those homeless? Today I drove in, the tent is flattened and there's a load of rubbish there. And I don't think that really needs to occur. I know it's a difficult situation, it's only mine have been rubbish, but it doesn't look good on Launceston's entrance there. But, you know, if they're homeless, well, they should be a little bit grateful, and surely they can clean up after they've been at that site. Lastly, I saw now there's 9 tents in the Brickfields. And I went to the council website to see how you get a site there, because now coming up a busy period of Christmas and things like that. Certainly a lot of homeless people coming from Queensland and other states to Tasmania. So, you know, is it a cost to camp there, put a tent up? Can anyone put a tent up there? What's the rules and regulations around controlling that? You know, how do you mow the lawns there? How do you water the area? How do you keep it tidy? Has council got a risk management policy in place for the new camping site at the Brickfields?
Sure. Thank you for your questions. I would definitely say that we have been really confident and positive in the way in which council conducts itself of a not moving on process for our rough sleepers, because as it's been identified, move us where. We respect that the elements that have come to pass to put those people into those situations are complex, and it's not just obviously cost of living, it's mental health, it's fleeing domestic violence and those sorts of things. And again, as we've mentioned, we have a really inclusive approach to this, and we're working on a name-by-name basis and so forth, but that obviously doesn't have a direct line of fixing up the problems that are associated with this complex issue. So I would say, no, we don't have a fee structure. It's not noted on our website as somewhere you can book a space, but this council is proactive in the way of not moving those who are doing it tough on.
Sorry, there were two questions there. One is, have you got a risk management policy in place to handle where these locations are? And the second one is, how do you qualify to camp in the...
Well, I think you qualify by being homeless, by doing it tough. I don't think there's any qualification that comes to say that somebody is at the end of the tether and they have to go and live in a tent. I find that that's a little perhaps disrespectful to think of somebody as qualifying to be homeless.
No, it wasn't at all. I'm just saying, what happens to the council when there's 150 tents there? That's what my point is.
Absolutely. Yep. No, and that's a far better way of looking at that situation. And we do have policies in place with our inclusion officer who works every second of every day. We have a general manager who works in community in place every second of every day in that space, working with service providers. But as you've stated, it's not as easy as just going in just because they perhaps don't look very inviting or very nice and going, well, move along. That is not the policy that council has.
But has the council got a risk management policy in place where they look at the location of those tents, i.e. the one that was located behind the museum?
Sure, absolutely. We have risk management in place for all situations when it comes to our community. And as you've stated, this does look like something that needs to be addressed. It will absolutely be addressed. So thank you for bringing it further to attention to the council. Any further questions without notice? Oh, Mr. Smith?
Oh, no, I'll give way. No. Go ahead. Let's do a challenge. My question, some feel frivolous coming on the back of rough sleeping, unsheltered people when I'm talking about bronze statues and Christmas trees. But Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Robin Smith, working at Cafe Coffee Republic in the Brisbane Street Mall. I'll just preface what I'm saying, that the Christmas tree was well received by business in the Brisbane Street Mall. But the previous mayor did assure us that what happened last year wouldn't happen again. Essentially, that's the tree wouldn't go black, and it pretty much is black again. It was advertised as having 7,000 coloured lights. Probably got about 100, 150, maybe 200 white lights left. That's it. Since Monday. The baubles as well have been vandalised. So exactly the same happened last year. It happened on the 20th of December. And from the 23rd of December, not a single light shone. I just hope we're not going to have the same thing this year. Is that something council fixes, or the builder, Tas City Builders?
I think that by the looks around the room that we're unaware of any vandalism at this point or any lights going out. So I would have to say that will require a little further investigation, just a quick walk down to the mall and hope for the goodness of Christmas that that's not the case.
They've been out, yeah.
Sure. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
It wasn't without impact for the business. We do lose trade because, of course, there's 14 days of construction, the fenced-off area. But we didn't get much feedback. There's no city prom anymore, and we're not a member of an association. We didn't have much feedback. But it's not without impact. The road closures, we weren't advised of those. The mall could have had its annual washdown, which it hasn't had for a year, which would have helped. And unfortunately, some of the food vendors, the only two food premises open was myself and the donut shop, and you brought in food vendors which were selling donuts and drinks. So that made it very hard to compete with price-wise. We just can't compete because our fees are much higher. Is that something council would look at? And who should we discuss that with? Or should we just wait till council or an association approaches us?
Well, we've got Launceston Central is the City Prom current governing body in their new invigoration. Around road closures and the facilitation of 5,000 people with 3 food vendors, this is something we'll have further discussions, and I know that the community and place team did start a debriefing session internally as of yesterday, and I've met informally with conversations around that. But we absolutely take in any feedback from yourself as somebody who resides in the CBD and any community member that has feedback. And I've been receiving feedback through social media and through email. And yeah, the only thing that we want to do is to ensure that this event continues to grow and continues to be positive for its community and also its retailers. So any feedback is always welcome.
Okay. Just to be clear, what was City Prom is now Launceston Central. We don't communicate with them at all. They're a marketing body. They're not an advocacy group. They don't do the surveys like they used to. So that's not an opportunity for us. On the mall, the thylacines, I asked many times for those to be raised or made safe, but they were removed. And the previous mayor did advise that something was going to replace them, some artwork of some description. I wonder if we have an update on council's progress.
Sure.
with that.
We have some canopies that are currently growing in our nursery, which will get brought into the mall at some point once they're rejuvenated and strong enough to hold their own. And there's all sorts of different cultural advisory committee comments that are coming through to council as we continue to look at invigorating the space there. I would be really honest in saying that I'm stoked with how our community and place team have dressed the space for Christmas, the crossover, the lights, the baubles that are hanging. I think this is a really new take on how this mall can look. Noting that, yes, the thylacines are now in their new home here in Civic Square, that conversation and continued work in the mall is definitely happening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should have prefaced what I was saying by saying Tas City Builders and the council did a good job, but we pay a cost as well. We have a loss in trade during the building, so when it's not without cost to us in lost business when the fence is around, that's why I raise it.
Okay.
But I thank you for that.
Thank you. And I'll take that as part of the conversations that we have further around when we start to plan it for next year and so forth. So thank you. Another further question without notice?
Thank you for standing, because last time I couldn't see you. I could see that bit. So thank you. Rosalind Ives, West Launceston. Defibrillators at the Gorge, saving lives. A few years ago, when I was a volunteer working at the Gorge, and after completing a first aid course with other volunteers, paid for by the council, we were advised that defibrillators were the first and most appropriate device to have at the ready for cardio events. I raised this as a question at a council meeting and was advised that the procedure was for an ambulance to be called for all emergencies. However, since there are lifesavers, council staff, security personnel, chairlift staff, tourism tour guides and others in attendance regularly, there is no impediment for there not to be a device at hand which could save a life. The variety of physical activities at the Gorge indicate that there are accident risks that can be life-threatening. Access to the Gorge by ambulance is not fail-safe. In those crucial minutes when someone has been taken from the water or had a cardio episode requiring an emergency response. I'm alive standing here because I had a cardio arrest, and it was the ambulance that saved my life. I can tell you, it's worth thinking about. The cost would be around $5,000 to have 2 defibrillators, one near the cafe and one near the restaurant on the other side. What cost a life? In many public spaces, these life-saving devices, without need for first aid qualification to administer, are readily available. You are talked through the process to administer it. Will Council consider the provision of 2 defibrillators at the Gorge before the current summer season transpires? Advice can be provided for the best locations for them. Would Council also seek advice about the updates now available for safe and secure location placement of defibrillators? If I was a family member of someone while at the Gorge who could have their death prevented when an ambulance couldn't reach me in time, with the use of a defibrillator to save them, I would be indebted.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for the conversations that will come from those questions also. And thank you for the advance notice on that question as well. and the information provided there also. We'll have a look. We'll take that on notice so that you can get an official response to those questions. But yes, there will definitely be some following up around your questions.
Matter. We really haven't got time to save a life.
Sure.
We don't have.
Yes, thank you. Any further questions without notice? Okay, there being none, we will move forward to agenda item number 9, Planning Authority. So under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993, Council acts as a planning authority in regard to items included in this agenda under item 9, Planning Authority. 9.1 is the Lilydale Road, Rochely contract depot to store vehicles and excess materials and car parking. Before we get to the recommendation, is there anyone from the public to speak?
Good afternoon, my name's Scott Miller. I work with Crossroads Civil as the Northern Manager. Historically, there's been a bit of a problem with the site with dust from the batching plant. That has been somewhat confused, I think, with the application for extension of the car park that we're proposing. We've undertaken work since the last council meeting, which my manager, Scott Callow, spoke to you. We've spent somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 already asphalting the site, installing the watering systems as dust suppression, redefining open drains to make sure we catch everything on site that we should be. We hope that that's an indication that we're committed to cooperating with council and officers and undertaking any necessary upgrades we need to seek approval for the site. We ultimately intend to move our site, entire operation, out to Rayburn, to our quarry site. This can't happen overnight. We're expecting it to take up to 2 years. It's going to depend on planning approvals with Northern Midlands Council, as well as the actual construction of the elements we'll need to operate. That being said, is locally business, employ Hazel Brothers and Crossroads nationally about 834 people. Tasmania, it's obviously many hundreds. I don't have the numbers on me at the moment, but we need to continue operating our business. Now, we're very conscious that we want to disturb the locals as little as possible. I think that's illustrated in the work that we've put forward today. And that does include provision for the additional requirements if this DA is approved. Thank you for your time.
Great. Any further speakers? Okay, there being none, we'll move to the recommendation, which is to consider and approve the development application pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act. I'll go through some of these recommendations also, because that is subject to the following conditions. So there's endorsed plans and documents. There's 15 of these. I won't go through all of them because we've done that in our own time. But there's also the legal title, hours of construction, Taswater. There's the hours of operation, which has been put in as a condition, site landscaping plan, driveway and parking area construction, use of car park, damage to council's infrastructure, soil and water management plan, control of dust emissions, covering of vehicles, controls of noise emissions, exterior and security lighting, and finally, spilled collection bund and storm water. So with all of those conditions being laid out, somebody to move, Councillor Gibson. A seconder, Councillor McKenzie, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to move this item, obviously following up from the 2nd of November meeting. I think ultimately the action that we took at that meeting has ensured some great momentum and some forward momentum with regard to this DA. I note that the item isn't listed as a retrospective item. It should be. It's a retrospective development application whereby some of the works were undertaken, some of the use of the site was undertaken without permit. Nonetheless, that meeting of the 2nd of November ensured some specific actions, and I really thank Mr Miller for coming along today, but more importantly, I thank the manager of Crossroads, because very swiftly following the meeting on the 2nd of November, a range of things have occurred. Positive things have occurred. Some would say some things that should have occurred over the last 10 years have occurred. Regardless, this provides me with some confidence that this particular DA, which of course needs to be considered on its own merits rather than confusion with the other use classes and the other addresses on the site, can be undertaken. Regardless of whether or not the owners, the users of that site are moving or not, the neighbours are entitled to live without disruption with regard to dust and with regard to the other concerns that they had. I think this is a really positive outcome. I thank Michelle for the work that she's done together with our staff, and want to remind ourselves that it shouldn't take a DA in order for us to move with regard to compliance matters. I'm heartened by the report. I'm heartened by the conversations that councillors have had from the manager, the acting manager of the department, to say that these are the mechanisms that, should future breaches of conditions be noted and relayed to the council, specific action will occur. It's our job as councillors to remind the officers that that is the course of action that we want to take, and we will be ensuring that that is the case, that we don't reach the situation that we had to find ourselves in on the 2nd of November, where it seemed unavoidable, but to take the action that we took with regard to this particular DA and the nuisance that had been caused to neighbours over a long period of time. So I think the work that's been undertaken, admittedly, you know, this is an asphalting style company, so let's remind ourselves of that, a firm that works in this area, so we certainly appreciate the cost, but it's your core business, so to be able to do what you do and seal your site is appropriate, and we thank you for that. But also importantly, the installation of the sprinkler system and the way that that sprinkler system will work, noting that when we visited last time, you know, it wasn't necessarily as good as it is now. So I think ultimately this is a great outcome. An enhancement of the conditions is appreciated, an enhancement and an acknowledgement of our EPA positions and the tools that are available to us should we need to call on them into the future, and I'm satisfied with where we've got to, and indeed happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Deputy Mayor is the seconder.
Thank you, and I wasn't present on the 2nd of November when this was first discussed, but I did listen in to be interested, and I just applaud the work done by the councillors to actually lay it on the table, and the goodwill of the proponent and the representatives to actually accept that, because some of these things you don't actually get a choice to do that because of time constraints. So it's great that the operator was happy to step aside and go through a process. The process has been documented where there was public meetings held, firstly with the proponent, secondly in relation to the residents that lived in the street in regards to it. Now, I think again, separating the two, there are two issues. One is the plant itself, which I think they are the major cause of concern as opposed to the DA that we're actually voting on today. But I think even so, there's been an action plan, and some of the things that have actually taken place actually are related to things that are not related in the DA. So I thank the proponents for actually taking on board some of the commentary that was made probably at this last meeting and by the members of the public to try and mitigate some of the issues that have been long-standing. I don't want to trivialise how it works for people who live across the road and get dust and things on their roof and their windows and everything else in between, because that's something that's pretty serious for a lot of people, and particularly if you've got asthma or other health-related problems. This problem is still going to exist. We get a windy day. I don't care how much water is going to be put on the things. There will be still some remnant dust. but it's to manage that, deal with it. But I think the broader thing is having a conversation with your neighbours and making sure you talk to them about things. If they've got issues, now clearly things get to high levels of anxiety in some of these issues, but the reality of it is, and we did this a few years ago, which was not an agreed thing by council, but it was agreed by Toll, that they would talk with their neighbours about things that were causing their neighbours issues, and they had a residents and Toll working group. So I think that if you're there for 2 years, make sure that you've got a space in your diary to actually sit down and have a talk to the people who live next door to you and listen to their issues. I think there are issues there that you're dealing with, like the bunding and the screening is obviously going to make some assistance. I note that a number of the things that have been conditioned have already been done by photos that I've seen in regards to the asphalting and so forth like that. So I think whilst it isn't a perfect solution, it is for this particular development that we're applying to today, not completely for the site in general, but I can see that there's a desire to work to improve that, and I note that we've got our processes in place if we need to enact them, and hopefully we don't need to, other than making sure that there's a breach that they let us know, they talk to their neighbours about it, and they fix it as soon as they can. I'll be supporting this today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further comments around the table? There being none. Councillor Gibson to close. Okay, all of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Moving forward to announcements by the Mayor at agenda item 10, 10.1. No, we're not going to sit as planning authority anymore. No. I'll have to write that on there. As we're not sitting in planning authority anymore, I'll move to the Mayor's announcements, which are all published in the agenda, and that you can see there if you're really that interested. Moving forward to councillors' reports at number 11. We have some councillors' reports. Deputy Mayor.
Look, I guess being the season of Christmas, there's been a lot going on in the last little while, but I've had the pleasure of attending the Country Club Christmas party a week or so ago. The Bonza launch, which was fantastic out at the airport back on the 21st, which was our first new airline flying into Launceston airport for over 10 years. So that was great to see, and it was a full plane, and then a full plane with the Mayor on it going back again. And I think the people from Queensland flew in out of a very hazy, cold day in Queensland to an absolutely bright, sunshiny day here in Launceston, and wondered why they didn't live here. I also attended on the 22nd the NRM, Tamar NRM 25-year celebration, and really the work that group do for this community, more broadly than us, the West Tamar and Georgetown and the Tamar catchment, is something which is quite significant. Most of us don't know what bone seed weeds are and various other things. These guys do this outside of anything that we would know. They clean up alongside the roadsides and things like that. The volunteer group that actually puts together the programs that they do save our communities thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in what they provide, and I think they do a wonderful job with the amount that we actually contribute to them as a council and as a councils as well, and they fundraise themselves, but a fantastic group that have been going for 25 years strong. Also attended the NTDC management group meeting and also the AGM on the 24th. Went to the opening of the Mudlark One Day launch, which was 20-year anniversary of One Day Plays in Launceston. An amazing job where they actually put together a group of people one night, and over a day they put together a play and direct it and put it on stage 24 hours later. Amazing exercise. Attended the Vietnam Veterans Association Christmas dinner last Saturday night as well, and that was illuminating. A bit down on numbers, but a really enthusiastic group of people trying to come together and understand what they went through in many years gone by. And another day on the morning of that, I also went to the 100-year celebration of Peytons and Baldwins, which I tell you what, it's amazing. And the people that still remember it would say, I think at its height, 2,500 people worked there at one time, an amazing place. And the actual feeling of the people who were the ex-employees that were there, and Avery, who just about outshone the Mayor, even though the Mayor did a fantastic job in his presentation. But Avery had his unique way of saying things. And I think to the extent that he said, I think I must have dropped my speech, and the Mayor found it, and then just proceeded to blind us with some of his stuff. But just the camaraderie of the people that worked and lived there is just amazing, and a great community group they are. And I think the MRC opening yesterday, I attended as well, and this morning I attended the opening of the Virgin Cargo, which is another $10 million project out at the Launceston Airport, of one of a number of, and I think in a couple of weeks' time we'll be opening our security screening. So there's a lot, watch this space in regards to what's going on out at the airport. And this week, we're celebrating 40 years of the Northern Suburbs Community Centre being in place, and we've had celebrations during the week. We had on Monday, we had it up at the shed. Yesterday I was cooking sausages at Mowbray, and tomorrow we'll have the sort of finale at Newnham Centre, which is just, and we'll listen to our long-term patron, Frank Medill, tell some stories of what's happened over the last 40 years in the Northern Suburbs community. So fantastic things going on at the moment in and around Launceston.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now, I've got a few that have put their hands up here. So, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I also have been to a few lunches and other meetings. Tamar Valley Leaders Lunch yesterday up the Grand Chancellor. Sustainability in business was their subject, and two very interesting speakers there from the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and also the Office of the Coordinator General, to talk about the world is accepted the fact of climate change, and particularly from, I guess, the insurance and the underwriters to insurance, and therefore they are looking and saying to us, what are you doing differently today, because it is a different world we are going forward to tomorrow. Similarly, I met on the 22nd with Council Officer Nick Brown, who attended another state government funded supported event, TAS Council Supporting Climate Healthy and Resilient Communities, down at the Launceston Conference Centre, once again, where they are saying that councils, what are you doing to create a different world of a low carbon offset? And so whilst this council has declared a climate emergency back in 2019, not every council has, and clearly from a state government point of view, they are saying we need to get on with this and we need to change what we do. The opportunity presented to us at the conference centre was to perhaps give some feedback to the state government as to what things they could do to make that easier. It's all very good to say you're going to have low carbon cement, but if that's 3 times the price, then how do you actually make the market for that happen, as an example? So that was just two things that seem to be linked, and once again, very much about the future. On Sunday, the council supported, and I just wanted Sally's Ride, which attracted about 250 riders on a very windy and a wet overnight to our event. And I just want to say thank you to the council staff. Many of the riders who did the 20-kilometre route rode up the rail trail that runs from Mowbray up behind Mayfield through to Rochalee. And the effort that the council staff had done to clean that up was noted, and they are to be thanked for that. It was a very successful day, and many people had never been to that part of the city before. And so I just hope that the local community take pride in it and keep it clean going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Kai.
On Friday, the 17th of November, at the Launceston Leisure and Aquatic Centre, Councillor Palmer and I joined the Mayor in presenting Abby King as the first recipient of the City of Launceston's Ariane Titmus Swimming Scholarships. So congratulations, Abby, a most worthy winner. Now, on Friday, the 24th of November, Councillor Palmer and I, again, were involved in 16 days of activism, Launceston's Walk to End Violence Against Women. It was a great turnout with nearly 60 people carrying signs and wearing jackets with messages printed on the back, which Council had prepared. Walking the CBD streets, raising awareness of violence against women. There will be another walk tomorrow and next Friday as well, starting at 12:30, just outside the steps of the Town Hall. So please come and join us. It is an important area. Now, yesterday, along with Mayor Garwood and Deputy Mayor Mackenzie, I attended the Migrant Resource Centre's official opening for their new Launceston location at 53 Elizabeth Street. MRC TAS delivers the humanitarian settlement program in Tasmania to support new arrivals for their first 12 to 18 months. They are an essential service. The MRC Tasmania is having a cultural connections opening ceremony coming Monday, 3rd of December, from 12 to 2 p.m. just in the Civic Square, and everyone is welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kai. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I won't repeat everything that Councillor Kai just said, but it was wonderful to join yourself and Councillor Kai on Friday the 17th of November to award a very worthy recipient, Abby King, become the first Ariane Titmus Scholarship recipient. And I would just like to acknowledge and pay tribute to Councillor Gibson for putting forward that motion that saw this recognition come to light. So thank you very much, Councillor Gibson. On Saturday, the 18th of November, my wife and I attended the Diwali Festival on behalf of yourself, Mayor. The Diwali Festival is such a beautiful celebration. There was dancing, singing, eating, as we celebrated light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance. And it was a fantastic night. On Friday, the 24th of November, once again with Councillor Kai, we joined many in a walk to raise awareness for those people that are experiencing violence against women and children. And I did bring my lanyard with me, and if anyone is listening at home and they are going through some tough times at the moment, they can call 1-800-RESPECT, or of course, if it is an emergency, dial 000. On Saturday, the 25th of November, along with the Deputy Mayor, my wife and I were at the annual Vietnam Veterans Christmas dinner. Such a wonderful night with incredible people as we remember those people that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country, lest we forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Dr. Raze.
Thank you. On the 18th of November, I gave a presentation to the Australian Nepalese Medical and Dental Association annual general meeting. And we had like 40 to 50 people from around Australia. And I think this is like probably what Launceston will do well to attract these small medical conferences to the city. On the evening of Saturday, also I attended the Diwali festival, and I enjoyed a wonderful show by our Indian community. Last Saturday, well, George put his preaching into practice, so I participated in the Melissa Women's School of Theatrical Dance end of the year show, and we had like more than 100 adults and 130 kids. So it was a great, including some disabled people. And of course, next Saturday I will be participating in the Christmas parade, so you have to guess what characters I am going to dress as. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Raze. Any further? Councillor Gibson?
Thanks. I just wanted to stand to speak on two items. The first is following on from the questions that were asked with regard to Christmas. I really wanted to congratulate our staff for the work that had been undertaken in a relatively short amount of time to create what we have for Christmas 2023. I think the learning for all of us is just how expensive Christmas decorations are, but with some planning and some forethought over a number of years, there is opportunity to reach out to different parts of the city. So I think what our placemaking team were able to achieve this year with the budget that we approved for them was remarkable. It's sad to hear, if it is indeed the case that there has already been some vandalism, when I know we've got security and the like happening there. And we just remind all members of the community that this is an asset for everyone. And in order for us all to be able to enjoy the Christmas decorations, we all need to respect and look after them, because they're so expensive and they look so good when they are in operation. The second and final thing that I wanted to share, and I think it will probably come as an attachment at a future meeting, was that councillors received a copy of the Launceston Marketing Annual Report for 2022-23. And it was remarkable for us as councillors through presentations, but indeed in flipping through the pages that encapsulate an incredible year that this organisation has had for its work at the city here in Launceston. And, you know, I think it's fair to say that the way that the organisation has had to basically redefine itself, recreate its mission, recreate obviously its brand, its purpose with regard to the arrangements that we put in place has been nothing short of remarkable, what they've achieved. The number of events, the ability to promote and brand in alignment with the Launceston City Place brand, the city, and achieve what they've achieved this year is really remarkable and deserves to be celebrated. So I hope we get the opportunity at a future meeting to actually table the full report, because it deserves to be tabled. It's remarkable. A small organisation, what they're able to achieve on behalf of the city is quite remarkable, and I congratulate them for it.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. No further councillor reports. Moving to agenda item number 12, questions by councillors. 12.1, I don't have any councillor questions that were identified as a part of this agenda, but 12.2, councillors' questions without notice. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to ask the question, we're here, thankfully, that the new Spirits of Tasmania ferries are under construction, and in fact, the first of those should arrive next year in 2024, which will increase capacity across Bass Strait by about 30%, particularly for recreational vehicle or RVs and caravan tourists. So my questions relate to that in regard to Launceston's readiness to actually accept these tourists, in regard to, first of all, blackwater dump points, access to bulk fresh water, parking closer to the city for such large vehicles such as caravans and RVs, and also how the council intends to advertise these services to RV drivers and caravanners, so they don't just come to Tasmania and bypass our city. I'd be interested if you could provide us with an update of that. Thank you.
Acting General Manager Ogulin.
Thank you very much. It's a great question and really timely, because we're currently in the process of developing our new tourism strategy. Obviously, our RV tourists are really important for Launceston. They provide a very big economic benefit to us, but also enrich our community's cultural and social fabric when they come into Launceston. There's a few things that you raised. One of them is a dump point. We used to have a dump point, obviously, at the Roundhouse car park, and we were going to reinstate that, but it was damaged through to the redevelopment. So we are currently looking at potential alternative locations where we might be able to put a dump point, because obviously it's an important place for people to go. RV users can go to caravan parks and pay to use dump points currently, so there are some private caravan parks that they can go to currently, but we certainly will be looking at that as part of our Campervan and Motorhome Club of Australia membership that we are renewing later this accreditation. With respect to fresh water, potable water is available at St Leonard's, and it is listed on the RV Friendly website, so people can find out information about fresh water and dump points. With respect to parking close to the city, we do have some places near our visitor centre, but it's very difficult at the moment to manage them. It's not used very often, we're finding, but we are looking at alternative locations, potentially Churchill Park, but we'd need to then work around some of the issues with access and boom gates that we have there as well, but that's something that we can work through. As for advertising our services, we do currently have marketing on the Spirit of Tasmania. It is electronic, but we are looking to move to printed collateral on the Spirit of Tasmania, particularly as they bring the new ships online. And we will be looking at RV-friendly signage on our main arterials into the city. Of course, our tourism strategy will have a specific component that does refer to RV-friendly cities and getting the RV tourism sector into Launceston.
Great, thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks so much. Following Council's decision to support my notice of motion on the 5th of May last year, there is much excitement about Launceston's first ever pump track. I, of course, was thrilled to receive unanimous support, and then, of course, the budget allocation for this important infrastructure was passed. So, can the community receive an update on this exciting initiative?
Thank you, Councillor Gibson, and thank you for what is going to be an absolutely incredible asset to the city. And I do believe that the community will be receiving that through media channels, if not this afternoon, tomorrow. But I might go to our acting CEO for the finer details around the actual practical side of that, but it will be out tomorrow, I think.
Yes, there'll be a media event tomorrow. The tender for design and construction will be open and advertised on Saturday with the intent of awarding a tender early in the new year and construction starting shortly after.
And I note in the agenda on page 49, what is the location of our first pump track?
So the location of the first pump track for Launceston is the bit of land between the Charles Street Bridge and the rowing club on the banks of the North Esk. So it'll involve a pump track and also landscaping of the area.
Great. Councillor Britton.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick ones. Could we get an update on the repairs that are due for the Home Point pontoon, and also an update on whether or not the shipping containers in Royal River Bend are going to be removed before Christmas?
Thank you. Acting CEO, pontoons.
So the pontoons, they include the one that Tamer Marine operates, not Tamer Marine, the what are they? The Sea Scouts and the commercial operator down there. Yeah. So it's both cruises. Tamer Cruise, yeah. So that's both of them. The Sea Scouts one was damaged during the floods, and there was some specialised work that needed to be done to both of them, so we packaged them together. Unfortunately, we did go to tender. The one tender we got back we didn't feel was value for money. So we're reviewing there's some options we've got and how we progress forward to get a better value for money outcome. That's still progressing. Unfortunately, it's just taken a bit longer than expected. And the container, Catherine.
Acting General Manager.
Thanks for the question. I have been working with the Tasmanian University Boat Club on the matter of the containers in Riverbend Park. We're working together to get those removed from the grounds as soon as we can. We have offered our support. We're waiting for the University Boat Club to get back to us to firm up some dates and firm up the plan. It may not be before Christmas.
No.
Cool, thank you. Nothing further, Councillor Britton?
Could we not? I mean, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing in them, and I know this seems so menial, but there's a lot of people who just have no idea why they're there and why. I mean, shipping containers come up and down on every highway, go everywhere all over the world, and somehow we've got these super glued to our park. I'm not sure why we can't remove them.
So we have been providing support and requesting that they be removed. The University Boat Club doesn't have any funding in their budget, so They are trying to source the funding to move them because it's not going to be free to move them. We have offered assistance with that, and we are waiting to hear back from the University Boat Club. They are not our property, so it is not our preference to go in and take them away. We need to work with the University Boat Club.
If we can get someone to, if a councillor could organise it, could we get someone to remove it?
We have also been talking to the University Boat Club about moving them for them to another location, and then they can come and pick them up from there. We are in close contact and working with them.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Walker, then Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. When we spoke just briefly about tourist vehicles, I had it recently brought to my attention someone parked in the Gorge car park in West Launceston in a section with ageing signs that state oversized vehicles only. They deemed their vehicle to be oversized, but they proceeded to be issued a parking infringement. I'm not sure what's happened to that, and I will follow that up, but what is our definition of an oversized vehicle?
Sure. Acting CEO and legislation as to tonnage and so forth that would be...
Look, I'm not aware of the event and I don't know what an oversized vehicle is, so I'll have to take that on notice.
Thank you very much. I have asked the question previously about the connector intersection in Kings Meadows, joining the Bass Highway. Recently drove past there, in fact, only yesterday evening. Cars queued back, I would say, at least 200 metres, at least doing the right thing, actually pulling over onto the verge so that the two lanes, which are at 110 kilometres an hour, can continue along the highway. I can only see it as a disastrous accident waiting to happen. Have we had any further communication with the state government regarding a solution to that particular exit off the highway?
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I can speak to have personally been in a conversation with the Minister of that portfolio stating that it is an agenda item for them to look at that. At the moment, what I've taken from those conversations is at a very minimum point, they're going to be putting up signs saying up ahead, queuing traffic and so forth. Whilst I know that that's not a solution, but it is a way of making those people travelling at high speeds aware that there are cars that they're just about to come abreast to. I would say that as local representatives that this is our position to perhaps be a little stronger in our advocacy when speaking around these sorts of contentious issues and understanding that that development there, that intersection is failing now, let alone any further development around that area. So maybe we can have a conversation further to this meeting around what level of advocacy we're taking at the moment and how strong we are in that coming to a solution and a safer outcome for our community. But that's what I've gauged so far.
Finally, thank you, Mayor, for the answer there. I too can lend weight to the concept that the baubles on the Christmas tree in the mall are indeed easily reachable, have been reached, have been removed, have been broken. Is there any other way that we can secure that site, considering that people, it would seem, will reach over the barrier that's there, will pull on the LED lights, will pull on the baubles? And I'd like to think that mentioning this publicly doesn't encourage that, but it would seem it doesn't matter anyway because it is already occurring. Okay. Is there anything further we can do to secure that site?
Well, I think we'll have to do a little bit of further investigation as to seeing on the ground as to what's happened, where it's happened, and those access points that people seem to be finding. We'll take that one on notice, and it will be good to have that published in the agenda as well as some correspondence prior to the publishing of the agenda for next meeting also. Because yes, that's not an outcome that anybody wants to see. And I don't think that razor wire is a good solution, but yes. Yep, thank you. Thank you, though, for...
Not in the Christmas spirit, Chair.
We could paint it red and green, perhaps. Councillor Pentridge. Oh, sorry. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor.
I got a bit excited.
You did. Just in regards to the pontoon and the tender received, when did we receive that?
Acting CEO.
I don't know the exact date. It would have been about a month or a bit more ago, about that. So I can provide a more fuller update in the council's bulletin if you like. Yes.
Great. Councillor Pentridge.
We just go back to the container. And as my friend here suggested, is there any paperwork or is there any notes in relationship to who's talked to who? Because this has been brought up on numerous occasions. And what I heard is that these containers are parked on council land. The uni hasn't got the money to move them. And it's obviously not going to. So why not? It's obviously causing some concern to members of the community. So can some of us be given some paperwork to see what's been done, to see if we can come up with a solution?
Sure.
Is that possible?
Sure. Thank you. No, we'll take it in a similar vein as to Councillor Walker's question around our advocacy as to what we're doing, and look if councillors perhaps take a stronger approach on what seems to be contentious in our community. And yeah, cool. Thank you. Any further questions? There being none, moving forward to agenda item 13, committee reports. We've got 13.1, which is the Cataract Gorge Reserve Advisory Committee meeting on the 14th of August. The recommendation is to receive the report from that meeting. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Walker, a seconder. Councillor Kai. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak to the report?
Just very briefly, what is mentioned there, Mona Foma, as everyone would know now, having an event up there early in 2024, which everyone I'm sure is looking forward to, as well as Youngtown Rotary Club looking towards holding their what they have previously held, their soggy bottom boat race at the Gorge, as I think they did earlier this year, that you might have been involved in, Chair. That it is a little while ago now, that meeting, but nonetheless, that's some of the things that were discussed there and included in that report. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kai, anything further? Any comments around the table? Anything to close? There being nothing more to say, putting it to the vote. All of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. 13.2 is the audit panel meeting on the 31st of October. Recommendation to receive the report. Somebody to move? Deputy Mayor. A second to Councillor Walker. Deputy Mayor.
I think all that this does is summarise the depth of work that the audit committee actually does. There's a fair bit that goes in for a fairly significant meeting, but I think a lot gets done in those meetings, and I think we'll hear a little bit more when we look at the financial statements a little bit later in the agenda. And I think we've already received a copy of the audit panel annual report from the chair, Mr. DeSanti. So I think basically there's a large body of work that goes on every 3 to 4 months where we review things with external people giving advice to us in regards to things that are important in regards to all matters money.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the work you do on that too. I know that it's one of your most enjoyable reads. Councillor Walker.
And yeah, just briefly, the audit panel in that meeting did receive the audit panel's annual report, which was discussed and was more recently accepted by the panel, and that's a mountain of work in itself. Just stand to acknowledge the work of various panel members there in producing that.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any further comments around the table? There being none, moving it to the vote then. All of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. 13.3 is the Cultural Advisory Committee meeting on the 5th of October. Somebody to move the recommendation, that is to receive the report? Cultural Advisory Committee? Yep, Councillor Walker. Seconder, Councillor Britton. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair of the Cultural Advisory Committee, we certainly have been updated on things there through the past few months, including the Christmas decorations a bit earlier in the year. And look, by and large, certainly appreciate the work that council officers have done, and I've heard a lot of positive responses around town because of that. So I don't wish to in any way diminish that by talking about the damage that's occurring. But on the Cultural Advisory Committee, as is listed there, feedback regarding the expressions of interest, and indeed one of our panel members, one of our committee members is on the panel for the East Patterson Street Car Park Mural Selection Committee. And so on and on we go there with feedback from the committee on various other initiatives that are taking place currently in Launceston of a creative nature. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Britton is the seconder. Any further comments? A question?
Just a question, if I might, for the Chair or perhaps one of the council officers in regard to the update of the status of the Kings Meadows Car Park public toilet block, which has been subject to lots of tagging over the last couple of years, as to where we're at with the mural on that, which was a great idea to consider stopping the tagging and actually create something on it. So if you can give me an update, please.
Thank you for the question. So we have had obviously a selection of the artist, and they've provided some draft artwork to us. So we will be progressing very shortly to actually have the artwork installed. So I suspect within the next month or two we should have it in place.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Putting the motion to the vote, all of those in favour? That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. 14, Infrastructure and Assets Network. 14.1 is the Urban Greening Strategy. So the recommendation around this is that council endorses the City of Launceston Urban Greening Strategy, which too, if recommended, resolves in the affirmative, makes the Launceston Tree Strategy redundant. Somebody to move. Councillor Dawkins. And seconded by Councillor Harris. Councillor Dawkins.
Thank you. This is a body of work that I believe was started by notice of motion by Councillor Walker, and then we've developed it along with relationships with Chamber of Commerce and others with an interest in this space. So this lays out our strategy and implementation and the themes, which is something that we see with a lot of our strategies. We try and, we step through it. What it means, why we're doing it, how are we going to do it, and how we're going to cluster themes around what's important in this strategy. So from my perspective, biodiversity, how we choose the plants that we're going to use, but how we look at that deeper effect. Because putting natives, of course, into these kinds of urban environments is absolutely vital for our biodiversity. And we've got to think about how we're going to treat them. What sort of products are we going to use on them? Are we going to continue to use glyphosate? Because, of course, to have a healthy biodiversity, we also need a healthy insect population, which means that we have to consider their immune systems and what sort of chemicals we use in our city streets. There's so much in this, it's so important. We're joining a global network of cities who consider this to be absolutely vital, and there's a real question of social equity in how we determine how we move forward with this. I'm very fortunate to live in a suburb that has a 40% tree coverage, and I know how important that is. I know what that means, how that has enriched my life. I can sit out in my front veranda, I can see a wide variety of birds. I can hear them talking to each other. I haven't got to go far to see padymelons and other macropods bouncing down the street. I mean, it means something to be able to have that kind of privileged lifestyle. And not everyone can, and they should be able to. So we have to consider the ramifications of increasing trees everywhere in our community and how we're going to protect the wildlife that will inevitably move in, because it must. You can't just have a tree without everything that surrounds that. So we've heard so much about this over the years that I've been on council. If Councillor Cox was here, he would have stopped us. He'd have stopped us months ago in this. He'd have talked about how important it was for road traffic safety to not have trees in your roads. But we've moved on from that. And I'd say if Councillor Cox was here, he might actually agree that we have been able to move through a time where a road traffic authority would stop urban greening because of the ramifications on drivers and cars. Well, we now know that communities are not just about drivers and cars, they're about people on bikes, and they're about people on foot, and they're about the way that we all want to enjoy traffic-calmed, slower community. I was very privileged to live in Singapore a long, long time ago, and I've been visiting it ever since. My most recent visit, I could not believe it, but there were wild otters in the middle of the Singapore River in a community of over 5.5 million people. It was, I mean, I was absolutely gobsmacked that that was possible, but it is. That is 5.5 million people with all of the activities that surround that in a very, very small concentrated city. That's urban rewilding. That was a very, very particular project of the Singapore government, and the effect is absolutely amazing. They're not just there because they chose to leave the otters there, they're there because there are fish there. And because there are fish there, there are more birds there. And it starts to look and feel like something that is a natural way to use the earth. And these kind of projects step us along this in Launceston. I think it's absolutely vital because for so long we've been kind of ashamed and embarrassed and worried about the state of our river health, about the state of our tree health, about the state of our community. We talk about the heat islands in the northern suburbs all the time. We've spent a lot of money to make sure that we can really create a northern suburbs community that is healthy and vital and has got all the opportunities of every other suburb in Launceston. And this will go a long way to that because the heat island that has been identified in the northern suburbs, I'm not sure if any of you have stepped out, if you've gone to a school, for example, 3 o'clock on a hot summer's afternoon, you can feel it. It's not just something that a scientist can test for you, but you can actually feel it. And that's why this, if done well, and I hope it is done well, I hope we do move through this strategy, we do implement it, we look around those themes, especially around biodiversity, and we make sure that this is a deep and broad strategy that has a fantastically positive effect for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. Councillor Harris is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Dawkins, for that start off. You haven't left me much, but I will just go a little bit to understand the numbers behind this. Our urban footprint is at about 19%. Hobart is 16.7%, Melbourne at 22%, and Sydney at 15%. But Brisbane is the standout at 44% of urban canopy in their metropolitan area. And that is in fact our target, 40% coverage in Launceston urban area by 2040. So to do that, we will be planting 18,000 new street trees by 2040. And there is a accompanying document that talks about the implementation of our urban greening strategy. So as Councillor Dawkins said, this is something that the Chamber of Commerce has been keen to progress. So it's not only trees in our suburban environment, but also trees in our city environment. And I happen to be sitting at the cafe at the end of Patterson Street in George Street yesterday afternoon and looking down that street. And whilst there were trees in the distance, probably at Royal Park, it's a very sad street. There's not a single tree for about 4 blocks. And the effect of that is, even on a day that was somewhat overcast, was still of the heat. Because certainly when I went around to St John Street and the trees, even as small as what they are that are there, and particularly the ones up near Princess Square, just the difference that it makes to the temperature that you can feel is quite incredible. And so this is very much, as Councillor Dawkins said, about reducing that heat, the urban heat island effect, I think it is. It's a bit of a tough one to get the tongue around, where basically without having trees, the temperature does rise. So the council is to be congratulated on this, and I hope that everyone will support today that they will implement this strategy, and so we can get on with it, so that by 2040 we can have perhaps 40% coverage canopy in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Now I have a question, Councillor Britton.
Is there any way anyone in the gallery can talk to this at the moment? I don't think there is there, or no?
No.
Thank you.
Thank Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair, and I would love to be able to take credit for this, as was ascribed to me, but unfortunately, no, it's not true. Nonetheless, it I suppose is something that the council has, been investigating for quite a while, and of course the MOU with the Chamber of Commerce has been, a part of that process. What I did bring forward in August last year was a notice of motion that was agreed to around the table. I might wait till people have finished talking before I continue.
Thank you.
Oh, everyone's ready? Thank you. I did bring a notice of motion to the table in August last year, which was directly targeted at suburban business districts and getting significant spaces there that we could green, because I think that is a crucial part. Of course, they're all crucial parts. The planting of street trees, the maintenance of significant trees, having a significant tree register, I see is in there as part of the implementation plan, all fantastic things. But at the moment, apart from our CBD, which certainly is the focus of some of this urban greening, I do believe that our suburban business districts are deserved of those spaces as well. Increasingly, that's where people do go to shop and to congregate. My motion was to encourage council to investigate the possibility of acquiring land if we don't already have it in those areas, whether it be Mowbray, Kings Meadows, St Leonards, Invermay, wherever that might be, because that will all complement this particular strategy. Unfortunately, what I don't see is that particularly reflected in this strategy. It's mentioned, I will agree, in the action plan in O-20, develop a program to encourage micro-greening in civic spaces and laneways. That's, essentially, a worthy thing to do. And it does mention the priority districts for that, being the CBD, Mowbray and Kings Meadows. And that is good, but I would like to see that done far more significantly. I think we think of Launceston as a city of parks, and we're spoiled in and around the CBD, and especially around our waterways for those green areas. We are already spoiled. I know we only have 19% tree coverage at the moment, and we're aiming for 40%, and some of that will be planting on streets and so forth. But if we were to just take certain areas, and Councillor Dawkins points to one in Trevellyn where we already do have significant coverage, I'm pointing to those areas that significantly don't have that coverage, and that's where I'd like to see that significant improvement in a material sense. Because we can plant trees on the streets all we like, but if we can't get people to take ownership and take pride and feel that that's there for them and that they are part of that, then we've got a big problem. Then we've got a problem where we're planting trees that people are knocking over. We need to find a way to be inclusive in that process. Not only so people use it, but that they look after it and that they nurture that. Because, of course, that's what we all want, but it doesn't always transpire that way. So I stand to acknowledge the work that's being done here. I will finish by asking that question, how we believe that the motion that I did put forward, which, at the time I will accept was tempered by the CEO. I wanted to see direct action in that area, and it was tempered to say that the work would be included in this strategy. So my question is, how have we reflected the essence of that motion from August 2022 in this strategy, and how can we continue to evolve in that space? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Acting General Manager Pugh.
Thank you for the question. The shopping districts in our sort of suburban areas were very much part of the consideration, and perhaps they don't pop out like you had wanted in the implementation plan, but they are very much front of mind for us. We're aware that Kings Meadows and Mowbray in particular are in need of some greening. Micro-greening is one of those really powerful ways that we can get quite a lot of greening into spaces that are congested with lots of other services and movement of people and businesses. So one of our early actions will be to develop precinct plans, and that will form part of that. Thank you for the question. It has come up and we are absolutely on it.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you so much. I rise to add my support to this great plan and to convey my thanks for the journey that we've taken. It is true, all of the concerns that our community present to us with regard to ensuring that we plant the correct tree in the correct place. But what I would say is that overwhelmingly, have I not seen before a body of work, an idea and a draft plan released to the community that received such overwhelming support, appreciation and applause. And that was definitely the case when we went to market with this concept earlier on in the year. Of course, councillors will remember the MOU that we signed with the Department of State Growth and with the Chamber of Commerce with regard to some of our planting targets and our urban greening memorandum of understanding, which I think feeds into the idea of partnership and feeds into the idea of us being, in some ways, a facilitator, in some ways being the driver, in some ways being the educator. So I'm really proud of the work that we've undertaken. I want to read into the meeting the 5 themes, because if you are not someone who has previously connected with the environment and sustainability, you are perhaps someone who feeds into Launceston and the incredible assets that we have in terms of our parks and natural environment. You might be just at the beginning of your journey in terms of understanding of sustainability and understanding of, the Earth's heating and with regards to, the need for food security and the like. And that's okay, because what I think this plan does, and importantly what the implementation plan does, is spells out the way that we're going to go forward together. So theme 1, retaining and increasing canopy cover, and you've heard others speak about that achievement of a 40% increase, not a 40% increase, the ability for us to get to 40%, and I think that is really achievable. It's a really achievable target. It's not always that we set ourselves achievable targets, but I think that one is absolutely something we in partnership with the community can get to. Theme 2, and other councillors have spoken about this, improving urban forest diversity and resilience. Theme 3, supporting biodiversity and the conservation of the urban forest. Theme 4, developing integrated infrastructure to support the urban forest and livability. And theme 5, and the one that I'm particularly interested in, because I think this is the key to making it all happen, is increasing community knowledge and participation. It's very rare when we approve a strategy at council that we also approve the implementation plan. Sometimes you can approve the strategy and it takes 2 years to get to the first implementation plan. Well, here we are, we've got the actual goals and the roadmap to get there, all being passed and supported at the same time, which is wonderful. And 3 particular goals that I pulled out in that participation space are G25, 26 and 27. And for me, G27 is the most important, capitalising on partnerships with organisations like Rotary, like Tamar NRM, like TAFE, like not-for-profits and other organisations, schools, industry, in order for us to deliver all of the things that we've said that we're going to deliver. I note that the MOU isn't specifically referenced in the implementation plan, but we know that it is indeed a key driver, and it's something that we've signed in good faith with regard to some pretty clear targets that we need to achieve. So I would encourage our urban forester, new team member, to go away and look at this MOU that was signed on the 23rd of January, because it's a very important piece of a roadmap that helped us get, important tool that saw us get to this point. Want to finally say that This, I think, is one of the most important things that potentially will pass as a council, as a group of elected representatives that all come to this from different perspectives, with different drivers, with different levels of knowledge, and with different goals and ideals. But there's something in this for all pockets of our community. There's something in this for us to really be proud of, for us to be able to surpass the targets that we've set for ourselves. And, importantly, the roadmap is laid out for us. It's really clear. The implementation plan is there. You could drill down and create a weekly body of work that staff are going to carry out week by week in order to achieve it. And likewise, so could community groups. I note that we're going to create another advisory committee.
Would you like an extension of time?
I'll finish by summing up by saying the advisory committee will help us achieve those targets, and I hope that everyone will support what is before us, noting, of course, the incredible Waverley Lake picture on the front of the implementation.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Deputy Mayor? No? It's all been said? Great. Councillor Kai?
I remembered at the workshop when this was brought to workshop. And just before the workshop, Joe took me for a drive around the city where a lot of these big trees, established trees, are being cut due to the high voltage power lines. I was just wondering, at the workshop, I did mention about the underground power lines that Aurora was working on back in about 2005, 2006 that didn't quite finish. It wasn't completed. They were like 90% completed, and then it got canned because they didn't have enough finance. I wonder whether this is something that I could bring up now as to whether we could include in here finding out where those Aurora power lines are, so that we don't have to chop down any more trees due to power lines.
Thank you for the question. One of our governance actions in the implementation plan is to engage with the service providers such as TasNetworks, TasWater, so that we can come up with some guidelines and plans for co-location of services, undergrounding where possible, so that we can protect our urban forest, because we're aware that in some places it's a congested space, and sometimes the thing that gives is the greenery. So we absolutely have it as an action, and we'd like to see our urban canopy protected.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? There being none, we'll put it to the vote. All of the... do you want to close? Yep. Okay.
Thank you. And thanks for the comments around the table. Just following on from Councillor Clive's comment, it's really interesting, isn't it, being in a complex role like this, where we've got, on the one hand, we're land clearing because we know we need new houses. We know we need more houses. We hear about homelessness all the time. We need a variety of housing opportunities so that whoever lives in our community can get that opportunity to be safe at home. At the same time, we need more trees. So we need to be able to balance removing trees to build houses and plant more trees that are appropriate for the community, while at the same time balancing the needs of infrastructure, because of course we'd like to have all of our infrastructure buried so deep there could be a greening on top of all of it. That's just not the way it ever rolls. And for some of the communities that have looked at those real rewilding projects, that is always the biggest kicker, that how do you manage everything that you need to manage in the community at the same time as have any kind of natural aspect. So this is a really complex, interesting, as Councillor Gibson has indicated, important strategic document. The proof will be in the implementation, and of course we do welcome our urban forester. What a wonderful phrase to be able to use in a place like this. It's absolutely brilliant. It shows just how far we've come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. Putting it to the vote then, all of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Looking at 14.2, we are looking at request to waive road occupation fee, University of Tasmania, Boland Street. A matter of contention. Okay, so I've got a revised agenda of 14.2. Category is the same. Cataract Gorge Walkway first. Thank you. Okay, so the decision statement is to consider the appointment of a contractor for the reconstruction of 2 sections of retaining wall located at the western end of the Cataract Gorge. Do I have somebody to move the recommendation? Deputy Mayor? Seconder, Councillor Walker? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And look, it's been outlined in the report. We've actually had a briefing on this prior to this coming to council in relation to the reasons why we need to do this. Clearly, there's some urgency associated with the walkway. It makes a lot of sense to be doing it while we have the walkway closed anyway. So I think there's certainly good sense to make sure that we do that rehabilitation. The fact that we've gone directly to a proponent to do it with the right skill set in relation to it. I understand from the officers that they've road tested the value for money proposition in regard to it. As a consequence of that, I'm comfortable that we proceed with this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Walker is the seconder.
Yes, and certainly something like this would normally go to the Tender Review Committee or to a committee of the whole council, which I suppose is what it's doing today in essence, not that it's a normal tender process with multiple tenders. What's been identified, apart from only certain people probably having the skills to do this, is the timely nature of it insofar as the walkway is closed, as I think everyone in Launceston knows, and that most people can't wait for it to be open again. So we have a window of opportunity to fix sections in the western end of the walk, and I'm sure most people will know as you go along that Cataract Walk, you gain elevation as you go. I think when you're walking along, you think, I hope this doesn't fail, because it is a long way down at this point, as opposed to the work that's being done closer to Kings Bridge at the moment, which is a failing wall above the walkway, Cataract Walk. So let's not forget this is over 100-year-old walkway that's dry stone, bluestone walls, probably a certain amount of cement, a certain amount of other retaining mechanisms there, cement walkways, rock-fill walkways, a complete hodgepodge done at a time that was mostly with not just volunteers, but certainly money that was donated through the Gorge Beautification Committee, or whatever they were called exactly at the time, various notable Launceston business people donating to the work, and a large amount of people being involved in that. Our greatest asset, probably, something that we probably didn't expect to happen, but in hindsight, you look at it and it's quite the precarious infrastructure. So we get through this little impasse, if you excuse the pun, perhaps, alliteration, and we move to get it open again, but we may well have not really either a pun or an alliteration, I agree. Yeah. I was trying to think what it would be. It was a metaphor.
Let's just keep it moving.
And it's important to get these right. Thank you, Chair. I'll correct the record now. My point being that we have actually, something quite significant on our hands that we'll get through this little section, but I think that we might have to pay some greater attention to the whole infrastructure along that section. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any further comments around the table? Councillor Pentridge?
Once again, what concerns me, and I'd like to thank Andrew for waking me last time, because I obviously must have slept through that period. But I seem to have a recollection that there needs to be quite a bit of work done along the walkway, and there was quite a bit of subsidence. Now, instead of, I realise trying to save money isn't something real high on our list of priorities. But is there a report? Do we know? Has anyone actually walked it? Can anyone give us an indication how much work does need to be done? Yes, we all know it's an important feature of Launceston, but can someone give us at some time, as convenient, how much work needs to be done? And yes, we're a great time to do it while it's closed. But all we're hearing is every few weeks, there's a little bit here needs to be done, a little bit there needs to be done. Why not grab this opportunity and give it a big once over so it does become the asset that it should be for Launceston?
Thank you, Councillor Pentridge. Acting CEO.
So the walkway works was always intended to happen. I'm going to say, and there's a condition assessment, which we're happy to give you a briefing on of the whole walkway. And as we've briefed councillors at workshop previously, there's handrail and lighting improvements we want. That was always part of future and is built into our 4-year capital works program. Unfortunately, there's 2 bits that have significantly subsided, and therefore the timing didn't allow us to wait. So we've moved that forward. Yes, we do have to continue to invest in the walkway, but what we didn't want to do is open the walkway following the removal of the retaining wall on South West Road, and then finally had to close it again because there was more subsidence. So this is managing risk into the future.
Thank you. Any further comments, Councillor Kai?
I think I did mention this at the workshop, but can we apply for state and federal grants before anything, like before something breaks down, to put aside to redo or to upgrade the gorge walks?
Acting CEO, are we aware of any grant funding for this type of work?
Or if we can apply for it beforehand,
So
yeah.
We're not aware of any funding mechanisms for it, but we've heard what councillors have said previously around it would be appropriate, and I agree, for the state to contribute to one of our major sites in terms of visitation. So there are numerous years' worth of works that we need to do, and so the intent is we'll put together a package and start discussions with the state around potential funding opportunities.
Great.
Rather than waiting for something to happen like now and it's too late to go and apply for it now because it needs done, we could apply in advance for future fixes or maintenance. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Kai. Further questions, comments? There being none, Deputy Mayor, would you like to close as the mover?
Yeah, I do, and I'll just try to reflect back on, I thought we did get a report in regards to the state of the path when we had a workshop in regard to it. So I thought we did get some detail in regards to where it was failing and the fact that we do the walks. But look, the answer is this is our greatest asset. And Councillor Walker's already said that. Opportunistically, we have the walk closed. Great time to be doing works on it. Could we go out to tender and get something? Yes, but we might not get it done till next year and when we want the walk opened. The reality of it is these are skilled operators, I understand from the officers' reports to us in doing what they did. As a consequence of that, they've done a value for money assessment in regards to it. We just need to get it done.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, putting the motion to the vote. All of those in favour? That is 11 councillors. Those against? Councillor Pentridge? The motion is carried. Okay, so that was 14.3 in the revised agenda that I've got now is the request to waive road occupational fee with the light show Allenvale Road, Newnham. There being no speakers to this one here, we will move to the recommendation, which is that Council notes the proposal by Max Jago to close and occupy Allenvale Road, Newnham, to hold the Sun Smart Light Show event on the 24th of December 23 and agrees to remit 100% of the fee associated with the occupation in the amount of $8,800. Somebody to move. Councillor Harris? A seconder? Councillor Britton. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. There's been a bit of media around this, of course. Council has a road occupation fee, not necessarily to stop people from having a light show as they might do on Christmas Eve, but in fact for those mainly where people occupy our road space for a long time. And the most recent example that everyone can be familiar with is the building of the new building of St Luke's in Cimetiere Street, thank you, which has occupied part of our road space for quite a period of time. And there is a cost to the council and also the community for such things. So in reality, we have looked at what Max Jago is planning on doing. Thankfully, it is a Sunday night. Thankfully, it is only part of Allenvale Road, and they're from University Way through to Bethune Place, which will be closed to enable people to go and view his light show on his house. We are aware that this will be an inconvenience to his neighbours. Thankfully, it's not a work day, and obviously if he does it on Christmas Eve most years, it's probably less of a problem, but still it is nevertheless an inconvenience to the community in general. If you happen to live there, it's great if you're taking your kids out to look at the Christmas lights, and I'm sure many of us have done that. My kids are a bit old for it now, but certainly when they were younger, it was one of the great advantages of being able to drive around and see people who do put Christmas lights on their houses. So I'm quite supportive of us waiving the fee in this particular instance. It is not the intention of us to stop Mr Jago and his light show and charge him $8,000 for closing the road. However, the suitability of his site, of his light show, should continue to be discussed with him, because I do believe, and I haven't seen it, but I do believe it is quite a spectacular show. And I guess having it on a residential street, even if it is an arterial road, as Allenvale Road is, still has its challenges, and we have to be very mindful of those who are living around that area and those who need to communicate, who need to travel through that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Britton is the seconder.
Yeah, thank you. Only just to quickly say, maybe Mr Jago's listening. I know there'd be a few people probably listening. Obviously, we didn't have this road occupation fee 12 months ago, and I think there might be a bit of an idea through the community that we could have introduced it sneakily to affect Max, and that isn't the case. It's got many different applications as to why we're doing it, and obviously he's been a bit mixed up, and we've waived it. So that's important to know. And two, just to echo what Councillor Harris has said, that he may need to consider a new site for what is a fantastic Christmas light display. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. Further comments around the table, Councillor Gibson.
Thanks so much. Look, I think it's really important that we understand that we're not actually making the decision whether or not we support the closure of the road or not. That's a different process. The process to close the road for any purpose would be assessed by our trained officers, and you'll note on page 142 it says from the council officers that council has advised that a road closure would be acceptable. What we've been asked to do is to consider, when we introduced a new fee at the passing of the fees and charges earlier this year, did we indeed understand its flow-on impact to events? From me and perhaps from others around the table, the answer clearly was no, and it's on that basis that I'm standing to support the motion, which sees us remit 100% of the fees associated. It's really important that the public understand that, like last year, when the fee wasn't in place, that Mr Jago will still be required to implement road traffic management procedures. And based on what he tells us he paid last year, that itself was in the vicinity of somewhere between $5,500 and $8,000. So this is a different fee. It's important to note that the road closure management procedures that will still need to be implemented have nothing to do with this motion that we're supporting today. Indeed, it could have been that we were asked to remit this, and indeed officers may well have recommended to us that it was inappropriate to close the road. We could have found ourselves in that situation. That's not the case. Officers have said, based on the fact that it is a Sunday, that we're able to deal with that this year. I believe officers, similar to the conversation I had last year, will go back and say that we need to sit down and have conversations in the lead up to the event, and that releasing, your version of play to the media 1 month before Christmas is perhaps not the best way to go about achieving great outcomes in terms of event management of any size or scale within the City of Launceston. So I'm supporting the recommendation, and that recommendation is that we remit 100% of the fee associated with the occupation of the road, which comes out at $8,800, noting that it was never the intention from me at the time of passing those fees and charges that it would apply to events such as this. Indeed, we could see ourselves in a similar situation with an event like Festivali that closes the road, or the Christmas parade this weekend. That was never the intent. I believe officers are looking at that for us moving forward, and it's on that basis that I'll be supporting this distinct recommendation today, knowing, of course, that an event permit such as this will also come with appropriate traffic management clauses, stipulations and management.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Walker.
Just start with a question, if I may. I know that we are not approving the closure of the road today, as pointed out by Councillor Gibson, but nonetheless, is the approval for a 24-hour period, or is it a 6-hour period, or is it... what are the details of that approval to close the road?
I'm not sure the exact hours, but it's only approval for the period of the show, which is only 2 to 3 hours of an evening.
First show's at 8:30, I believe.
Thank you. So, I mean, therefore, these fees that are being remitted, but, you know, in other cases may not be, is the 8,800 based on a timescale, or is it just based on the fact that the road will be closed and therefore it's a flat fee that'll...
Yeah, but what's the time on it is what Councillor Walker's asking.
Over a 24-hour period, or is it... Yeah, I think it's a daily, as far as I'm aware.
Acting CEO? Acting General Manager.
So the fees are based on a square metre rate, and it's for a week. So if you had it for 1 day, it's a week. If you had it for 2 weeks, you pay for 2 weeks.
Thank you very much for that. Now, look, I do rise to support this remission, but still find it a little perplexing as to where we are headed with this in the long term, I suppose, as a council. I don't wish to be the one to say bar humbug, and I don't want to be on the cover of the Examiner tomorrow as the Grinch who stole Christmas or anything like that. But, and there was a but coming, it's wonderful to celebrate any event, Christmas, someone's birthday, a centenary, whatever it might be. But my concern is that this is a growing thing, that people put decorations on their house, on their tree in their front yard, on their fence, on their gate, on their car, on their dog or cat. But eventually we might, you know, it would see it's almost become a competition, I suppose, who can decorate the most. And that spills out. I would like to think that it could be contained within someone's premises, essentially, not onto the footpath and certainly not closing the road. But these events are becoming bigger than Ben-Hur, so to speak. So we certainly shouldn't forget the message of Christmas being, you know, time of giving and all those sort of things. And I'm sure that, you know, in this case, what's being done is a very giving thing. It's celebrating Christmas and allowing the community to enjoy that. But if it is going to become an ongoing thing, then we do have to rethink what it is we're trying to achieve in all of this. And it's hard to tease out because, as pointed out by Councillor Gibson, all we're doing today is remitting that fee, but then we might find that more people want that remission and more people want to put more decorations up and all that type of thing. And I certainly do extend my sympathies to those people who live anywhere further along Allan Vale Road who might well think that this is not necessary to have got to a point where the road will be closed. Merry Christmas, everyone.
A further comment, Councillor Pentridge?
Well, some of what I heard, I agree, but I have another, and again, while it says that's Christmas jolly, and I might have slept through this one too, but I seem to recall that we had the same conversation last year about with this gentleman, because I know for a fact that he was running around everywhere because there was opposition. But could our departments have time to organise this, to give the man the opportunity? I mean, there's a lot of work goes into it. He's doing a fantastic job. The rights and wrongs of it, I'm not going to get involved in. Like the old cliche, you've got to break a few eggs to make an omelette. Now, it's going to be a little bit inconvenient, but I think the joy it brings a lot of people, especially kids, I think it's worth it. But how about we sort this out with him long before to to give him, and I'm sure George would agree, he doesn't need to go through this stress up until the 12th hour to know whether it's going to get knocked on the head or passed. So let's see if we can get together, talk to him, and come up with a solution, before the end of November next year. So.
Thank you, Councillor Pentridge. Councillor Dr. Raze.
Well, thank you. I'd like to support this motion because I feel Christmas has got special affinity to our community over the centuries. It used to be very active where community get together, and we have to accept that for the last few years that has been decline in the way people celebrate also Christmas. I think we should support activities like that because it brings the community together and bring joy to the city. And it's like any art event. The council has been supporting art events, and we should encourage people to have more like this, because this is the way we can bring the community together, at least so we can remember what Christmas is about. Christmas is about not just joy, but giving. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions around the table? There being none, Deputy Mayor, I'm going to hand to you for a moment and just to speak. I want to rise as somewhat having been the one who was tainted as the Grinch around this whole process, just to reiterate around what's been said at this table, that this process, this fee, was never intended to come about to stop or to impede on events. It was a fee that was brought to this council to ensure that developers and that those who are looking to close roads work quickly and to timeline, to schedule as much as they can to ensure that our community isn't faced with extended periods of time of closed roads, as we do know impedes on the way around our city, the livability of it. So I want to encourage the community, because this council is working so hard on its communication. We've got 2 consultations out at the moment around having input for our community around skate parks and around open spaces, to really take the time to look at the details and to take that moment to go, what am I commenting on? What am I thinking about before they actually feel like they need to go out and jump on the negative council bashing bandwagon? Because we do have the community's heart at our heart, because we are community. We are members of the community. We want to see these sorts of events. And just to reiterate, this was not to be put in place to stop people like Max's event, but we also do understand that it will have some impacts on the neighbour and on those commuting in those roads. So that's the only thing that I want to say to it. Everything else has been said. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Back to you, Mayor.
Putting it to a vote, or Councillor Harris to close?
I think you said it all, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. To a vote then, all of those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Okay. Thank you. So now moving to agenda item 15, which is Organisational Services Network. Perhaps speaking around something that hasn't had community consultation. 15.1 is the Tasmanian Fire and Emergency Services Bill. This recommendation is that Council provides the following submission to the Minister for Police, Fire and Emergency Management in respect to the proposed new Tasmanian Fire and Emergency Services Bill, noting that the funding options are currently being reconsidered. I'm going to go through a couple of the points here for transparency. So number 1 of the recommendation is the proposed changes to the bill are not supported due to the lack of community consultation, particularly with those in rural areas. Inadequate timeframes allowed for councils and the public to consider the proposal, and an overall lack of information provided in a timely manner. 2, any changes to the bill that adversely affect a certain property type classification or properties in certain parts of Tasmania are phased in over a period of at least 5 years to assist those properties in managing any potential increases to their levy payable. 3, is consultation be ongoing between the relevant state government authorities and councils on the new legislation and funding arrangements by way of the proposed the working group to be established, and that there be appropriate local government representation in this group and/or by directly engaging with each council. They are the recommendations that I have here. Councillor Gibson, as the one who's going to move, would you like to do the final 2 for me?
It's my pleasure. The state government, number 4, the state government communicates changes effectively and clearly to the public so as to reduce both the burden and any potential backlash on frontline council staff. Clarity needs to be provided that it is a state government levy collected by councils. And 5, more clarity be provided on what the charitable concessions are, and that the proposed concession rate threshold to be reconsidered from 30% to assist with properties that will experience significant increases under the proposed new funding models, and that the exemption criteria be broadened.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. So Councillor Gibson to move, a seconder. Councillor Deputy Mayor McKenzie. Councillor Gibson.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this topic. Of course, much has been said in the media and from a variety of stakeholders pertaining to this important matter. Number 1, being such that indeed the public consultation perhaps didn't go to plan, and indeed the Minister may well have decided that the proposed fire levy and the implementation map that came with it was indeed not going to continue. I think it is appropriate, though, given that we've been asked to provide a response, that we follow through on that response. And I think the 5 points that are listed here reflect indeed what we should be doing in terms of standing up for our community. Importantly, I think it is spelled out in the report and importantly spelled out in the recommendations that this is not a council collection, that we merely collect it and pass it on. And that point 4, is really important, I know, to many councillors around the table, that we ensure that it's not our customer service and rates team who bear the brunt of the introduction of a new levy/tax. So I thank the officers for the opportunity for us as councillors to provide input. I thank the local government president in Tasmania, Mick Tucker, for his advocacy and work in this area. And importantly, our submission today not only represents good governance, transparency, and looking out for our own ratepayers and residents, but importantly demands equity for all Tasmanians, which I think is important also.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Deputy Mayor is the seconder.
Thank you, and I won't add too much to it. There are just 2 aspects to this, I guess. Firstly is that our emergency services and our fire services do an incredible job. Provided whatever the resources come out actually goes into funding those, I certainly support the fact that we have the likelihood of greater natural events that are going to occur and require their services. So appropriately funding those organisations is important. So I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. I agree the implementation process that's been put in place to date, I think, has been appalling. And in my view, the responses that we've got are correct. Are very good. So I thank our officers for the work. There's just one other thing I think the council, not the council, the government needs to take into account. The very people who are going to be hardest hit by the reforms that they're actually talking about are actually the farmers. And if you look around and look, who are the people who are actually volunteering their services to the fires when they happen in and around those areas? It's very much those people. So they volunteer their hours to go out there and fight the fires. So I'd hope the government in their thinking say, these people actually do put it in by what they actually put back into the community through their volunteer hours. So they need to take that into consideration when determining what this levy looks and how they're going to actually increase the amount that they want to receive, which is what this is all about. So I just think that's something that I hope the government will just take on board, that they need to consider the people who are volunteering are the people that are going to hurt the most with the proposal that they put forward originally.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further comments around the table? Councillor Walker?
Certainly is, as the mover of the motion said, an equity issue. I mean, no one begrudges the fact that we have to pay for these services and that these services should be provided. It's more in the nature of how that is funded is what is obviously people's concerns. And I think that the government hopefully has got that message loud and clear. But I certainly do rise to support the council's recommendation today. I would like to think also that the government could then become creative in the way that they do fund this particular service. And we look at the fact that we are experiencing more extremes in climate change, drier, dry spells, wetter, wet spells, more extreme temperatures, events like dry strike lightning, which is going to put our wild spaces under increasing threat from fire, and therefore our urban areas under threat from fire as well. So it all of a sudden becomes a bit of a bigger picture scenario, and you might, our government, it might be prescient upon them to start looking further afield at other support mechanisms and other ways that we can support our fire network. And that might involve renewing and reinvigorating those volunteer fire services and more support to them, but also looking at companies that can support their local communities and things like that. So I'd like to think there are other ways that this can be approached other than just throwing more money at it from ratepayers and from taxpayers, because at the end of the day, that's all this was a cash grab to throw more money at the problem. And sometimes we have to come up with a more holistic solution. Every town in Tasmania has bush at its doorstep, and every year there are burn-offs and mitigating efforts made where it's deemed that could be a threat. But that's usually less than 1% of the land of Tasmania that the fire different organisations can actually address. So this is always going to be an issue, but it might be time that we start looking at it from other points of view and other ways of bringing the community together, other than to just say it's time for everyone to pay more money, and for some especially to pay more than others. So I hope to see a new iteration come from the state government that includes some of those ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Pentridge.
I can't but agree with a lot of the comments, and I think our Deputy said it quite appropriately, that our rural community in particular, and not just our rural, there's a lot of people out there going to a lot of trouble to assist when those fires start. One of the things I won't be supporting, we're not going to become a tax collector for the state government, because the people in this community will see it simply as another tax that has already been stated. And although in no way am I criticising the hard work that they all do, I do think and know that there's better ways of spending the money than what we're spending. So maybe instead of just constantly going back to the community and hitting them for more money and then trying to blame someone else like the council, like people are going to say it that way, let's see if they can come up with a few ways of maybe saving a few dollars. Thank you.
Councillor Pentridge, any further comments? Councillor Gibson to close.
Look, just briefly, I don't think this now is a big ticket item. The reality is the ship has sailed. We thank the Minister for the opportunity to have some consultation around this topic. This is us simply closing the loop on the topic. One thing that I've learned from this particular topic is that when local government in Tasmania needs to be unified, they will be. When we want to look out for people beyond our municipal borders, we will. And I think in this instance, we've shown this. And I'm sure ministers and advisors have learned a great deal from this process as a result. Whether or not it was to be option 1 or 2, as is stated in our contribution, we would expect, and the community would expect, that a great more conversation was had, particularly with those people that were to be most impacted by the change. I think the community, in general terms, have said that. Communities and local government areas have said that. We're now merely closing the loop. That's the end of the topic. We have a great relationship with the government as a whole. We have a great relationship with ministers, and the opportunity for us to develop and start a relationship with this minister is there as well, and perhaps we could be used with our award-winning approach to consultation and public engagement. We'd be willing to help and share some of the things that we've done in the past that might help.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Putting it to the vote, all of those in favour? So what we're voting on is that we're sending the recommendation that we're not supporting the tax? Yep. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. Okay, looking at 15.2, which is the financial report to council, 30th of September. And the recommendation is that council receives the operational and capital finance reports for the period ended 30th of September, noting the operational report discloses an underlying deficit of 1.061 million as compared to the budget underlying deficit of 3.295 million, comprising of a 0.855 million favourable revenue variance and a 1.376 favourable expenditure variance. Deputy Mayor to move. A seconder? Councillor Walker? Deputy Mayor.
I like a set of numbers like these. They're easy to talk to. So congratulations on the team for what they've put together for us. But noting it is only one quarter, we have 3 quarters left to go, and the world can change during that period of time. But I think the notable things are going on in our community, which has meant that we've actually had upscales in our rates because of that revaluations, because works people have done. We've had more people wanting to do things, therefore the fees that we're charging have gone up. Our parking's gone up, which means more people are parking in and around the street, and I think the Easy Park app and so forth like that certainly has contributed to that. And on the converse of that, our revenue from fines have gone down, which means people are either paying their parking as they come in and therefore not getting those terrible fines that we tell people that they need to pay. So I think there's some really good things that came out of that. So significant improvement in our revenue over the quarter of $850,000, which I think is great. And then you look at the expenditure and you say, oh, that's great, we've saved all this money. But I just always have a word of caution there when you look at the most important saving, or the biggest saving that we've got is really in our salaries and wages, which to me sounds like a great thing, but the reality of it is it means we're under the budget that we staff, under the staff budget that we intended to go out with. Some of that will be mitigated by contractors that we've brought in, but some of that will be just being worn by the people who actually operate every day within this organisation. So the ability to get things done are somewhat compromised as well. So I think just be mindful of a saving sometimes isn't a saving in the longer term. So also just, a big sort of shout out to the work that the people have put in that are in our organisation, and note that a bit more comes with the responsibility of saving that amount of money. So thank you for that. I note that we've actually done some work on depreciation. Usually that works the other way on us, Nathan. So really pleased to see that you've been able to nail down how we actually sort of extend the lives of some of our assets. But look, I think there's some really good news in there, good start to the year. We now need to carry that through, because clearly, we have some headwinds probably in other things that we're doing that will challenge some of our profit as we go on through the year. But it's nice that we've kicked off in the first 3 months of the year where we're starting in a positive sense. So well done to where we've got to. But I would like to see that variance in relation to salaries and wages come down, because we've actually recruited some more people.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Walker is the seconder.
Yes, thank you. I think our Deputy Mayor has covered most of it. I suppose I would perhaps characterise it slightly differently, insofar as I feel as though we're at the crossroads a little in regards to that variance of salaries. At some point, that does come a burden for the organisation, that we don't have the expertise, that we are looking outside the organisation to get certain work done. We are facing headwinds in a number of different areas, and when that's combined with a slightly diminished workforce, that can put pressure on other parts of the organisation and other officers working within the organisation as well. So, I don't wish to be put a dampener on the whole thing, as you pointed out. It is a favourable set of numbers at present, and there's no reason why that can't be maintained, or or at least that there's identifiable positive trends there if people are parking more in the city, are spending more money on parking and things like that. It's just a matter of understanding those trends and understanding that some of those impacts, while they can be represented financially, the impact, it's harder to measure for the organisation. I suppose I've made that point quite clearly. So let's just be aware of that as an organisation, and I suppose have that patience. But also as we face these, what I think are headwinds together, I do believe that as a community, we're not through the worst of economic turbulence, and so. But as we face those together, be aware that that is putting pressure in other parts of the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any further comments? There being none. Deputy Mayor to close. Nothing further. Okay, putting it to the vote then. All of those in favour? It is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Agenda item 16 closed. Council, we don't have any closed today, unless that's been added in the last agenda that I haven't seen. Meeting closed. Next meeting on the 14th of December, which will be our last meeting for the year. Cool. Well, I've never had the problem before.
It's the draft one.
Yeah.
It's the draft.
Yeah. No,